Hello, lovely people. It's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room, and I'm into a multi-day project right now. I don't think this week is going to be quite as prolific as last week because this one's going to take me a bit longer. I've already had to do fabric washing and drying, fabric ironing, just to get ready to cut these pattern pieces out. And I have also had to look through the pattern as comprehensively as possible to make sure I'm making the correct size and using the correct cutting layout and all that sort of thing. This is McCall's pattern 6613. It covers the range small through large. There's obviously a pattern envelope with the larger sizes. And previously I made a plaid shirt using, I think it was View D. It was the long sleeves, no patch pockets, no tab for when you roll up the sleeve. There's one of the views where if you roll up the sleeve, there's a tab inside that comes out and around and buttons to the outside of the sleeve. Not bothering with that. That's just an extra level of complexity I could do without. It's a fairly complex pattern already. The nice thing about it is, where's a bit of fabric? I'll show you the fabric as I'm showing you the pattern pieces. It's not, well, it kind of is a one-way print, but it doesn't matter if it's on its side or upside down. It's okay. So I don't need to worry about pattern matching and direction and all that sort of thing, in my opinion. With the plaid shirt, I did end up doing a crosswise grain yoke. That's a separate piece. And I had to make sure that my lines of my plaid were all matching up across the front. And I think I even, because the sleeve is in two parts, you've got a main, like 2/3 part and a narrower part, so that when it comes down to the cuff, there's a seam there, which is where the cuff opens. I made sure that those were matched as much as possible as well. But with this one, I'm not worrying about that. So it was a lot simpler to cut out. And I actually have quite a bit of this fabric left over. I think I may have bought 3 or 3.5 meters of it. I've got at least a meter left over. It's nice to have that little bit of safety net in case I screw something up. So I'm not going to record the whole procedure because it's going to be far too long, but I thought I would just give you little glimpses into the process as I went through it. So where I am right now, as I said, I had washed and dried and ironed all my fabric. It's quilt cotton, so it's the narrower width. And I had ironed it right sides in. If you've ever bought quilt cotton, you know it's usually on the bolt right side out. So obviously after I washed it, I ironed it right side in for the cutting process. And I decided I was going to make the size medium again. It's like that hooded vest I made last week, in that because it's a unisex pattern, it seems to run larger than the usual Mrs. or women's ones. And I thought, because my plaid shirt feels a little snug across the chest now, I was thinking maybe I've got a bit bigger and I need to make a bigger size. But I think what's happened is that the flannel may have shrunk a little bit with washing. And it's not me, it's the shirt. So I did double check. On the pattern, it tells me what the finished size is going to be. So I'm sticking with the medium. I'm also sticking with the 2-inch shorter length. So when I cut my pieces out, I had taped them 2 inches shorter along the adjustment line the last time I made it. So I kept that. And then for the sleeves, they're in there somewhere, I taped it 1 inch shorter, which is what I did last time. And I'm glad I left some notes to myself because that was helpful. But I did also leave another note that said, trim 1 inch off top of shoulder opening. I'm not really sure what that meant or how I did it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it as is and hope for the best. Oh, and another adjustment I think I'm going to do, rather than do buttonholes, my Janome quilt machine, I can never remember what number it is, does beautiful buttonholes, but you know what? It's just an extra bit of work that I could do without. Plus then I'd have to find some like 9 matching buttons in my button stash, which I probably have. I can't talk right now. Blech. Buttons in my button stash. So I'm going to use cam snaps. And I know I have cam snaps. So what I could do is I could make every one a different color if I want to, or I can make them all the same. Doesn't matter. So yesterday, I cut it all out and interfaced the pieces that needed interfacing. So I have a collar stand. The collar is in 2 parts too. So the collar stand has the SF101 on, which is the woven fusible from Pellon. So there's my piece number 8. Here's my pieces number 6, which are the front bands. Yeah, front bands, which would be the button bands if I was putting buttons on, but actually will be the snap bands. One of those is also interfaced. My collar pieces, again, one of which is interfaced. My cuff pieces, there's 4 of those, 2 of which are interfaced. You know, I always used to think that I'd have to have a completely free day and try and make something from start to finish in a day. And then I finally realized that it doesn't really matter if I do it over the course of a few days. You do end up breaking up the flow a little bit, but on the other hand, you're not rushing it, so it's probably a good thing. All right, this is my yoke pattern piece. Here we go. So here's my yoke pattern piece. Let's give you a proper look at the fabric. So you see how that looks. Now these leaves here, or whatever these are, I feel like they probably belong that way up, but I'm not bothered about them being sideways or even upside down, if that's what they are. I don't have a problem with that. If you did, you'd have to cut the yoke out with the grain of the fabric instead of the cross grain. But this fabric was like $3 a meter on clearance at Fabricland at least a year ago, and finally getting around to this. So very exciting. So I cut my back out on the fold, so that is done. I have cut my fronts. I almost cut my front out on the fold. Having made that mistake with the hooded vest last week, where I cut something not on the fold when I should have done, I almost did the other thing the other way around this time. And then I thought, wait a second, the front obviously isn't supposed to be joined across there. So I just changed it in time and cut the fronts out. And then I have the 2 pieces for the sleeve. So got the narrower piece for the sleeve, which is the under sleeve, I suppose. And then the piece for the other main part of the sleeve. And when I first saw that, when I made the first version of this, I just thought, why does it have to be so complicated? And then I realized that, yes, if you want the cuff opening up partway up the sleeve, it makes it easier to have a seam there. You don't have to. I'm sure there's patterns where you just have a slit and then you bind the edge of the slit. But yeah, this one does it that way. So I had a good look through this. I had a good read through, did my due diligence. I have circled the instructions that apply to me with my friction pen so I can erase them later. So this red pen here was the one I made first because I was obviously using a wider fabric. This is my narrow cutting layout right here. And that's what I used. and I've interfaced. So I'm basically ready just to put my markings on, not ready to sew yet. What I need to do right now is I need to transfer my pattern markings. And of course, in the old days, when I was at school, we always used tailor's tacks, which is marking it with thread. But today I'm just going to see if I can get away with tailor's chalk. Yeah, sewing chalk. I've got a chalk pencil here with some red stuff in it, which will contrast nicely with the blues. And I'm just going to make sure that I've transferred as many markings across as possible. I also used to cut my notches out. That's what I was taught to do at school. And now I just snip in, because the seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. So if you do a little 1/8 of an inch snip into the seam allowance, it's no big deal, because it's going to get trimmed off later anyway. So once I get to the next stage, I'll come back and talk to you a bit more. The sewing has begun. So the first step was to make this little pleat in the back, middle back. You have to just fold these bits in and hand baste it down. And then I sewed one yoke piece to the top of the back on the outside, and another yoke piece to the top of the back on the inside. So you baste your first piece on, then baste the other piece on the other side, and just sew it once. So the back is done, done, done. Looking pretty nice, though I say so myself. It's going to be a fun print, that. I'm hoping this is going to be the start of a lot of fun shirts. And I'm really taking my time and trying not to rush this, because I know I'm not going to finish it today. So there's no pressure. I don't have a deadline. It's it's good not to rush this sort of thing, because it's too easy to make a mistake. Currently, I have joined my back to the yoke, and I've joined the fronts to the yoke. It's looking like a body already, but I had a little bit of an issue seeing what I was doing when I was supposed to slip stitch the yoke facing to the seam line on the inside. I'm using a light grey thread. I have my contact lenses in, and even with my reading glasses on, I can't see my stitches well enough to be sure it's coming out neatly. So where I have to slip stitch here and here on the inside, I know it's on the inside and people won't be looking at that, but I want to do a decent job. Who am I even? So I'm going to, well, it won't get done after work tonight because I'm working till after 9. But tomorrow I will slip stitch this. And so I put that aside until I have better vision. And then I got on with the sleeves. So the sleeves are ready. So what you do is you baste a little pleat into the bottom of the sleeve. Sorry, the light's over there, so it's not ideal angle for you. So you baste a little pleat into the cuff area, and then you sew the seam for the 2 parts of the sleeve, and then you hem the cuff opening, and then you sew the seam to make the sleeve into a tube. Yes, it's a little bit of a process, but it's easy. At least it's not challenging, the sleeve, so that's good. So this is what the sleeve looks like when it's right side out. That seam will be on the back of my arm. So that's the front, and then this obviously is where the cuff is going to go, and then open and close on this side. So I think I've had enough of the concentrating on things right now. I'm going to put this away for the day. I do have to get a few things ready for my shift, so I'm going to put my body and my sleeves aside. But so far, so good. All has gone well so far. Just a little update. It's the next day. I've had a pretty busy day so far. I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and we did a bunch of errands, Mr. Stitches and I, because he was looking for stuff for his retirement projects at the hardware stores and various other places. And then I came home and had to prep my oldest son's birthday dinner and cake. He always has carrot cake with peanut butter frosting. So, of course, I had to get that ready. And while the cake was baking, I took my yoke piece upstairs and I sat on the couch and did my hand slip stitching, because now I've got my contact lenses out and I can see really nice and close up. So that was done. And where is that? That was there. The slip stitching is along this edge on both shoulders. And then I did the top stitching along the edges of the yoke. So then it was time to go back to the sleeves. Oh no, hang on. Then it was time to sew and neaten the side seams. And what I'm doing with the neatening of the seams is I'm just trimming the seam to about a third. No, not even a third. So it's a 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. I'm cutting it back to about a centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. And then I'm zigzagging the two pieces together. My old sewing teacher would probably cringe at that, because in the old days, we pressed the seam open and we zigzagged each side. I'm going to do that. So, a lot of sewing here, isn't there? I went back to the sleeves, which yesterday I had got sewn to the point of a complete sleeve except for the cuffs. I did the ease stitching, or what we used to call the gathering stitch, way back when. So 2 rows of very long straight stitch. So I put it up to 4, my stitch length, did 2 rows of stitching between the notches on the sleeves so that I can pull the threads up a little bit in case I need to gather it slightly to go into the armhole. That's probably my least favorite job of the entire project. And I always have to remember to leave my threads long at the beginning and end of that, because the whole point is to have some threads to pull on to tighten it up. The amount of times I have automatically used my thread cutter either before doing that or at the end of doing one of these, and it just drives me crazy. Now my my cuffs are made, and I have just pinned them to the bottom of each sleeve. So the edge of the cuff matches up with the edge of this opening here. And I noticed that the cuff was slightly smaller than the sleeve. So I undid my basting on the pleat there. There's a pleat here that goes into the cuff. And I took the basting out. I pinned everything except for where the pleat was. And then I just made the pleat a teeny bit bigger. It didn't take much. So my next job is to sew along there, not catching this side of the cuff in here, because this side of the cuff is going to end up going over the seam allowances and encasing them. But I have to sew along here where my pins are, and then it flips over and the seam allowances get nicely tucked away. So both of those are ready for sewing. I'm not going to do them right now because I need to go back upstairs. I need to assemble the Greek salad to go with our Greek potatoes. So that's where I am so far. Well, I probably look a little bit tired and a little bit ragged now. We had a really good dinner. The carrot cake with the peanut butter frosting was amazing, as always. And then we had to get our daily walk in, so we went out and did that. And so by the time I got to my sewing machine again tonight, it was 8 o'clock, and now it's nearly 10. The sleeve insetting has been a very slow process. I can't remember what I showed you last time. I don't think you saw the cuffs finished. So the cuffs are all done, sewn on and top stitched. And the sleeves, I had to do the 2 rows of long stitches to gather them into the sleeve hole. And I really, really, really don't enjoy that process at all. But I didn't just pin it this time. I actually basted it or tacked it in and then sewed them and checked them. And there was a couple of places where I wasn't too happy with them. So I just had to unpick like half an inch and re-sew it because there was a bit more of a pucker than a gather, if I can explain it that way. On the back of this sleeve, there's a little area of gathering which I'm not super happy with there. It's a little bit lumpy. I don't know if it's going to look terrible when I'm wearing it, but it's right on the back. Let's see, where's the shoulder? The shoulder's there. Yeah. It's sort of round the back here somewhere, so I won't have to look at it. Not quite as neat as I would have liked to have been. I possibly could fix that little bit there, but I've probably left it too late now because I have double stitched the sleeve seams and zigzagged them as well. So I'm just going to leave it. Back, front and sleeves, all done. And all I have left now, the next step, I think, is to do the bottom hem. There's still a couple of fairly important steps to do, and that's add the front bands and the collar. And the collar, of course, has to be assembled before I can add it to the shirt. So there's going to be a fair amount of time yet to spend on this. For now, I need to get to bed because I have work in the morning. It's the end of another day. I worked today, had to do a couple of errands on the way home. By the time I got home, I had time for a cup of tea, and then I had to make dinner. Then I had a 1-hour meetup online with the festival organizers. And finally, I got to the sewing machine. Feels like rather than giving my sewing priority this week, I'm having to squeeze it in around other priorities. Which is really sad. Anywho, I am here. And what have I done tonight? I have hemmed the shirt. Very, very narrow hem. What you do is you do a long stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, and then you have to press up 5/8 of an inch, turn that 1/4 of an inch inside, and as you're pinning it down, you can pull on the threads to make the seam allowance cinch in a little bit because it's quite curved. I'm doing the curved hem, not the straight hem. So I did that, and then I had to assemble my front bands. and then sew them on. That was quite the process as well. And of course, there was one thing I had forgotten. When I shortened my body pieces by 2 inches, I forgot to shorten my front bands by 2 inches. So I did this bottom part and I pinned it from the bottom up to make sure that this was looking all beautifully lined up here. And I thought, it's too long. What did I do wrong? And then I realized, of course, if you shorten the body, you have to shorten the front bands as well. So I made sure to trim a couple of inches off the tops of both of these because the top of the front band is going into the collar. So not an issue. And the second thing that I messed up, I guess you could say messed up, I attached the front band on the right side, and then you have to bring it over. You're hiding your seam allowances inside the front band, and then you pin, baste, and sew. You can either slip stitch this down, or you can top stitch it down. And I thought, I'll just pin it and top stitch it from the right side. It will be fine. Well, it wasn't fine. The underneath slipped, and in some of the places I didn't catch it with my sewing. So then what I had to do was unpick that and do it properly by basting it first. And then I added a little touch that they don't mention in the pattern. So stitching it here catches down this side on the inside part. There's a couple of places you can actually see the stitching here. Well, I can. It's very, very light. I was trying to cover the stitching and it slipped a bit in places, but I did catch the fold of this side along with the fold of this side. And then I added another row of stitching down this edge so that it looked the same on both edges. I thought, wouldn't that look better to have both edges top stitched? Whew. And once again, I am tired as heck. And I'm going to finish for tonight. I only have a couple of steps left to do. I have a collar to make, and I have snaps to put down the front and also on the cuffs. And whilst this isn't perfect, I think it's going to be perfectly satisfactory when it is done. I haven't tried it on since I put the sleeves on, and I don't think I will either. I'm going to finish it regardless. It should fit fine. This is the same size as the one I made before. Should fit fine. So yes, it's actually looking a lot like a shirt now. Tomorrow I have friends coming in the morning for some coffee and some crafting. So I won't be getting any sewing done in the morning on this. But I should be able to do some in the afternoon, which means in theory, I could get it finished tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. I didn't do my Wednesday workout today. So I'll have to do that tomorrow as well. But that's okay, because I will have the afternoon free. It's Friday night. Yes, the last clip was from Wednesday. And wait till I tell you what happened Wednesday night. I decided to call it quits for the night. I put everything down. I picked up my laptop and my charger cable because I'd had that virtual meeting earlier in the evening. I picked up my teacup from over here, which I had kept well away from my sewing for the evening. Had a little bit of tea left in it because I never finish my cups of tea. So I go over to the other side of the table to head to the door. And just as I'm grabbing one more thing, the mug slips out of my hand. It falls on the table. The handle breaks off. It falls on the floor. And in the process, a puddle of tea ends up on my sewing table and splashes on my work. Oh my goodness. Let's just say the language was a lot stronger than that on the night. I'm sure Mr. Stitches, aka my husband, heard me cursing from all the way upstairs. So I ran upstairs, I threw the shirt in progress into a bowl of water, came down, mopped up the tea, finished up everything down here because, yeah, picked up the pieces of the mug. That's so annoying because that mug I only got recently. My friend gave it to me for no reason, an unbirthday present. And yeah, it's gone. So I soaked the shirt and put a little bit of soap in with the water, swished it around, rinsed it out, put it on a hanger and let it drip in the bathroom overnight. And it's fine. As far as I know, I haven't inspected every single inch of it, but I'm pretty sure it didn't stain. All those hours of work. If it had been something else that stained more instantly or did some sort of damage to it, I would have been so gutted. Anyway, Thursday, I had a couple of friends come over in the morning and we did some hand stitching and we made some little characters out of scrap fabrics. And I'll show you that in the next vlog because this one is a kind of standalone video just for this shirt. It's not a vlog. It's just going to be a project video. It's going to go into the project playlist. So you'll see that next time. And I just couldn't bring myself to come down here all day. I just couldn't face it. I needed a rest. I needed a break from the shirt because it's so intense. And then today I was at work again and had a cup of tea when I got home, and then it was time to make dough for the pizza and all that sort of thing. And yeah, I didn't get down here until this evening. But the shirt, all the sewing of the shirt is finished. And the only thing left to do is put the snaps on the front and the cuffs. So I'll show you it now. Of course, I had to press the whole thing because after I washed it, it got all creased again. So here's the collar. And I have to say, it was pretty challenging. I had to really, 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 really think hard about what I was doing on this because a collar, when you think about the way you wear this collar, it folds back on itself. And so the interfaced side of this collar stand has to be on the outside. And the interface side of the collar itself is that side. So you have to read it triply thoroughly to make sure that you're putting it on the right way. And then I was trying to figure out how to get these bits matched up as well as possible. This gave me the biggest headache, trying to make sure this is going to end up matched up right there. I'm glad it's done. And then, of course, when I sewed my collar to my neckline of the shirt, I got a couple of little puckers and then I had to re-sew those. I just unpicked maybe 1/2 inch of stitching, smoothed it out, sewed it from the other side just to make sure it didn't pucker again. So I'd say that this is done to the best of my ability. At my current level of skill, I think it's probably the best I could have done. And if I make any more of these, hopefully it will get a bit easier. I hope so. Can I face doing any more? Oh, I didn't iron that yoke very well. There's a crease in there. But yeah, it's a fun print. And what I will do in the next, which is also going to be the last clip, I will have put the snaps on and I will put it on and show you what it looks like on. I haven't tried it on as yet, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it looks on. So that's that. Feels like every clip in this video you're seeing a very tired me at the end of a long day. It's Saturday morning and I'm very relieved to say that the shirt is finished. That was quite the journey. It's still looking a little rumpled from its bath earlier in the week when I got tea on it. I did iron it, but obviously I need to be a bit more brutal with the steam. So I put the snaps on this morning. I had these perfect colour snaps in the stash. I will admit right now that this collar is probably not sitting quite right where I put the snaps at the top here. I think it's touching too much here. It probably should have butted up a little bit less closely, but it's never going to be worn buttoned up to the neck anyway. I'll always have that snap and that snap undone, I'm sure. The important one is the one across the bust. I put it on. I made sure I marked with a pin where I wanted the one at the fullest part of my bust to land, so there wouldn't be pulling across there, or gaping, I should say. And then I just put the ones above and then put the ones below. I used centimeters and millimeters to make sure all of these were perfectly spaced because it's nice and accurate. And then for the underneath other half of the snap, I ended up just pressing down on this to make a little circle indentation in the button band underneath, and then went with that because measuring was turning out to be a little bit off. So the cuffs also have snaps. I didn't go back to the pattern to see where they were supposed to be. I just put them centered in the width of the cuff, and 1.5 centimeters away from the edge made the hole. Done, done, done. Now, having tried this on to figure out where the center snap was going to be, I can see what I meant now when I said to shave off 1 inch at the shoulder. Because this is a unisex design, it has a very wide shoulder, and it would fit me better if this came up and the sleeve seam landed maybe here. So I'm going to have to, if I make this again, when I make this again, let's be optimistic here, I think I'm going to have to somehow either adjust the paper pattern by trimming it, or I will cut everything out as usual, but then when the yoke and the back and front are all joined together, maybe just cut it when it's in the fabric, because it is a little, even me with my wide shoulders, it's too wide really. But we're not going to worry too much about that. So you can see the narrow hem there. This bottom edge actually matched up perfectly here, which I'm gobsmacked about. So let me just put the phone down and I'll turn it inside out. We'll do a warts and all. This is it inside out. I can't get rid of all these little basting pieces of thread, honestly, everywhere. So the collar looks great inside because obviously it's double thickness. That's looking a little wrinkly, but nothing an iron wouldn't fix. This is where I top stitched the yoke from the outside. The yoke was slip stitched first and then top stitched, so it's nice and secure. The sleeve seams were double stitched and zigzagged. You know, no one's ever going to see that when I'm wearing it. So, you know, it's fine. Side seams were just sewn with a straight seam and then zigzagged. The inside of the button band, of course, looks nice because it was, again, double layer. I have to say, doing the snaps is way faster than sewing on buttons and getting my sewing machine to sew buttonholes. And then on the back you can see the inside of the yoke better, and then the pleat in the back. So I would say there were a few places where I got a bit stressed out because I was worried about things matching up. Mostly here, like where you're putting the collar band on and then flipping it over and tucking your seam allowances in and trying to get this to be straight. It took me so long to get around to actually sewing this on because I was worried it was going to be awful, but in the end it was fine. If you take it one step at a time, it's not horrendous, but there were some head scratching moments. All right, I am going to put it on now, show you what it looks like on me. Before I take this shirt off and put the other one on, this is the first one I made out of this pattern. As you can see, it has all the plaids, all the plaid lines, which you have to, you know, ideally match up. I mean, you don't have to, but I made sure that everything was matching fine. Even my button band lines were matching with everything. Where it was seamed under the sleeve, I had my lines matching. I can see a couple of places where I did things differently. On the collar band, or the collar stand, I did do what they said and top stitch all around it, but I didn't on this one. All I did on this one was I extended the stitching from here where it had been top stitched up to here where the collar part had been top stitched. I didn't want to go all the way around it. I was too worried I'd mess it up. And on the cuff on this one, I just slip stitched the cuff on the back, whereas this one I top stitched as well as per the pattern. So it was quite a few years between making these two shirts. I had forgotten quite a bit of it. Maybe it's like giving birth. You have to forget about how hard it was so that you can do it again. All right, I'm going to throw this shirt on and then we can see how it looks. And there we go, the shirt on. As you can see, I probably just knocked the microphone there. But as you can see, this shoulder line should probably be up here. So an inch further up on my shoulder. It pulls off my shoulder a little bit. But, I mean, it gives me a bit more movement, I suppose, more space to move. I'm so used to wearing t-shirts with stretchy fabric, it's weird wearing a shirt. If I'd done buttons, what they suggest is 7 buttons down the front, and that's for a 2-inch longer length in the shirt. I cut 2 inches off the length of this, and I used 8 snaps, because I started here with the bust one. I could probably have done that one a little bit lower for the fullest part. Probably should have been here, maybe like an inch lower. And then I figured out that with this top one and with that one being there, I needed 7 centimeters between the snaps all the way down. So I ended up with 8. So 10 sets of snaps in the end. Just move my chair so I can do a twirl. So this pleat in the back gives you a little bit more room to move, which is nice. It fits well. It's not too baggy, except for that shoulder, which is annoying me, but I'll ignore that. You know, I didn't want oversized. The idea was it should fit. And I don't know if you can see that, but where the hemline comes up over the hip area, I guess they did that so that when you tuck a shirt in, there's less bulk inside your pants or trousers. But yeah, that length is landing right on my hip before the width of my leg sticks out. So that is perfect. So there was a few curse words during this project, especially when I splashed tea on it. God, I can't believe I did that. But on the whole, I'm really happy with it. And when I do make more, I'd like to make some more. There's some really fun prints at Michael's that have Hello Kitty on, or Snoopy, or Winnie the Pooh. And I just think it would be so fun to make a whole range of shirts out of fun prints like that. So I think I'm going to have to do that. The fabric's pretty inexpensive for quilt cotton at Michael's, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I probably should have measured how much fabric I started out with for this piece that I bought and how much it actually took me. But yeah, probably, let's see, for the medium, UD, it calls for 2.2 meters of the narrower width fabric. So 2.2 meters, if it was $10 a meter, it'd be $22 plus, say, GST. I think there's only GST, so plus 5%. So that'd be a pretty cheap shirt, as long as it works out and you don't end up binning it because you got something so wrong. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me for this journey. I ended up with a wearable garment in the end, didn't I? What a difference from last week, where I had like 10 different things made, and this week I've made one. Hope you have a great week. I'll see you again next time with something else.